Hello, welcome to Reloved Guitar Workshop. I'm Sam and it's a sunny day. No, it's the end of summer and I'm very seasonally affected. So as soon as the light falls and autumn starts coming, I get a bit sad and depressed. Anyway, what I'm not depressed about is the fact that I've got a couple of great little guitars to work on here in the workshop, and in fact there's two of the same, you can probably see. There's one hanging here which is a vintage V100 in black and sort of slightly faded worn out gold, and here is a vintage V100 in cherry sunburst, and this one arrived working, and this is we've already seen the first bit of this, whereas this one didn't. I picked it up in London last week and it definitely wasn't working, but I've completely rewired the whole thing. So the good news is the pickups are working. I don't know how it plays yet. So today I think is a good day for taking care of the necks on both of these guitars, and that's the good news about that, of course, is that I'll do this red one and Thomas can do the black one, since it's kind of his guitar. We bought that one for him to work on. Just before we get stuck into this red cherry sunburst V100, I just want to show you the difference. I think you can probably see on this thing. I just want to show you the difference in cleaning frets can make fingerboard, or clean the fingerboard. So here we have the old untouched CS V100 Les Paul blah 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 fingerboard. You can see it's got years of grunge on it from playing, but I've just cleaned one of the frets just now, and I think you can probably see the difference that makes. A lovely warm rosewood. No wonder it's called rosewood. Here it's blackwood, here it's rosewood. So, and I haven't done anything clever to that other than used a very, very fine paper. In fact, it could go as fine as 2400 micro mesh here, a little pointy rubber block, and some water, good old-fashioned water. And yes, we are, it is being abrasive, and it does require a bit of oiling afterwards, because the fingerboard then looks very dry. Because it is, when you use water on it, you're taking out the oils a bit, or certainly when you're using a abrasive paper, you're pulling off that top layer of finger goo, and as a result the wood underneath will look drier for a moment. So it's handy to have some guitar oil. Not that I'm a massive fan of that particularly, but it just it allows us to give that fingerboard a slightly hydrated look back. Oh, it's not hydrated, oilated. So plan for today is I'm going to clean all the fingerboard on this and the black guitar in this video, but this is the video for this guitar, and then I'm not going to oil the rest of it. And the reason I'm not going to oil it for the time being is I'm going to stick masking tape to it and prepare it, and level the neck. I think the neck's really level. Check the neck and then mask it up, ready for doing the frets on it a bit later today. Now when I've done all the frets and everything's polished and perfectly in order, then I will oil the fingerboard as the last thing. It's just quite literally, because if I don't, the masking tape won't stick to the fingerboard where I need it to. Everything about this guitar is good, except there is, I don't know, some sort of intermittent problem with this switch. When I first played it, it seemed to not be very good in the middle position. It worked, but it's a bit dodgy, so it may require a new switch. I haven't got one at the moment, so I'm going to carry on with it with the view that I can add that switch or replace that switch later. Having said that, if you look at the way this is constructed, that becomes actually a lot harder to do than you would just guess at first. That's very difficult to get that switch out of there to work on. It's almost impossible to work in the hole. There is enough cable in there, probably, but you have to pull out the pickups and yank wires around through the long thin holes that are drilled through the body. So what looks like a simple job actually is a pain in the ass to do. When I rewired this black one yesterday, I actually ended up coiling up a fair bit of wire into this cavity here, simply so that somebody who wants to maybe change the switch in the future can pull it out of there and do it there in situ without having to rewire or unpick all the wires from the wiring cavity down here in order to pull that pull that switch out, because right now there is absolutely no play in that at all. So you're either working with sort of robotic microscopic soldering irons and microscopes, or you really, if you're like me, you need to pull that thing out to work on it. So at the moment, since we don't have a replacement switch anyway, I'm just going to carry on with this guitar as is. And we'll sort of reassess it once we've got it playing, and if it does need a complete new switch, then we'll order one in. At the same time, I've ordered some upgraded capacitors to go in here, so it might be a good time to just check all the wiring in here when we do get that, but I think that's a separate job to getting it back up to playing standard in the first place. So to get on with my cleaning thing, I'm going to just work with my, let's say, grit, my 2000, just slightly supporting the neck. You don't have to, but this could do one with one of those proper neck support things here, because this guitar, that'll do. This guitar is it's the way the Gibson shape is constructed is if you put it down on the deck, this is always taking the weight on the headstock, which is probably why they break so easily when people when they drop or fall over. In fact, that's just occurred to me. I'd never thought of that. People wonder why the headstocks snap all the time on Gibsons. I don't know if you can see this, but imagine the geometry or the sort of physics of this. Maybe you're falling from a standing position, right? And you're falling right down here, and you know that the headstock is the first thing that's going to hit the ground. That's amazing. And then it's going to take all of the force and it's going to snap and shear off here, probably at this point here, the weakest point, the angle, because you can see that it's taking the weight right now, so it's got absolutely no strength. And whereas it's not here, but the blue vintage AV6 Strat that I had knocked over, or it dropped in the garden the other day, actually fell. Luckily, it fell on its face anyway, and the vibration of that split the fingerboard off from the neck. It's where the only place the force could go, and it split the joint, which I was able to seal back together perfectly well. But even if the AV6 had fallen, the vintage Strat copy had fallen on its end like that, it may have survived. It probably would have survived a lot better than this, simply because it doesn't have that angled headstock. It's got a much straighter headstock, and it probably would have absorbed the forces much better. I'm watching my kitten eating a moth outside. Anyway, so yeah, just you can just sort of feel it when you're working on a bench with a Les Paul copy. It's just so obvious that design with the tilted back neck is always going to end up breaking as soon as that thing falls backwards. The only way it can fall and survive on this guitar is probably forwards, but who knows? Anyway, just a little, yeah. You can see the angle. I mean, that's bound to take the impact. On this, everything about this guitar is structurally okay. This one has a crack, very, very, very tiny hairline crack, exactly at the join where the neck joins the body. And it's structurally sound. There's nothing moving there, so it's literally, it's been dropped at some point. Probably actually the other way around. It's probably been dropped face down, and it's just caused a shear or a little fracture on that joint. So I just kind of tidied that up, but I obviously checked to make sure it's really strong first, and it hasn't. I've tried to bend it in various directions, and it doesn't open up. Okay, so back to the vintage V100. Cherry Sunburst. Again, I say I'm just gonna use a rubber block to support this a bit, because I don't want to be putting pressure on that join. And I'm just now going to work with a little bit of the old water on the neck. And you can do it a number of ways, but I'm going to start by just using my fingers just to get the bulk of the goo off. And you'll see it starting to build up as a kind of grey coloured goo, actually, best word for describing it. And it's just all the finger grease. Now, using your hands to do this just gives you a better feel for the wood, and you can feel what pressure you're putting on it. If I had a white cloth, you'd see what colour that was. It's horrible. The reason you might want to use a block is we might go over each fret afterwards and just get right up close to the edge of the fret, because it's very nice recovering, giving a nice rosy colour back out of the fretboard. It can look a bit odd if you don't get right up to the frets, because what you end up with is a sort of darker colour right next to the frets, where the glue still remains. So again, this is a very fine abrasive paper, and of course it is abrading slightly, but you don't mind that on your fingerboard, as long as what you don't obviously want to be doing is putting great big sort of scratches that make the thing look ugly. But very fine paper like this. I can actually see, you probably can't see it on this camera, but there's actually, the colour of that wood is actually slightly pink, and it's actually coming off as a very, very pinkish dust, which is quite cool. But also, when you go over the inlays, you can really see the finger goo. Probably should need some sort of, I don't know, protective mask or something to do this, just to keep some other previous owner's DNA out of your face. Who knows what's coming off here? Rubber gloves time, forensics. Thing is, it's when you're doing this sort of thing as well, you've got to just keep your eye on where you are. It's quite easy to sort of miss one and think you've done it and then have to go back. But it's really nice to do this little job here, because you can see the warmth of the colour shining through. It's a much cleaner looking fingerboard after we've done a bit of this to it. And it just, I think if I was a new owner of a guitar like this, I would much rather it didn't have 50 years of smoky blues clubs ingrained into the fingerboard. I mean, personal choice, but I think there's something about when you get a guitar, something about, I don't want somebody else's DNA on it particularly. I know it's been played. It's even like my partner Claire said when they opened this guitar, actually I think it was, I was away working in London, and they opened this guitar when it arrived, and both Claire and Thomas could smell the cigarette smoke, sort of just ingrained in it really. Now, I'm not knocking your right to smoke, but it is amazing how much kitten, what are you doing? Don't eat the wires. It's amazing how much what we do imprints itself on the things we own and possess. Particularly smoking. I mean, that's obviously something that really gets into everything. So I don't know if you can see, but there's a real distinct difference between the front set of frets now and the back set. And I'm just going to try and remember where I got to. I've got the cloth with me because I don't want too much water splashing around. I mean, remember it's an electric guitar. Obviously it's not plugged in while we're doing this, but it's electric, and it's got bits of metal and wires and components in it that probably wouldn't benefit having too much water in them. Although, it's pretty low tech. It's not like it's a computer and you spill your tea on it. It's very forgiving, comparatively forgiving. But like I say, we don't want to have more water splashing around this than we really need. Even down to laying on the fretboard, we don't want water seeping into the joins where the frets go in, for example. We don't want anything going in that will weaken the bond between the fret tang and the wood that it's seated into, because otherwise we run the risk of having frets popping out unexpectedly, which would certainly ruin the playability of a guitar like this, any guitar. So, coming up near the top, and again this is where I've got to just be a little bit more careful with the amount of water and hence I've got my cloth in the other hand ready to just wipe up any obvious excess water. But it's really tons of grey goo coming off this. I mean, it's one seriously dirty fingerboard. But that's a great sign because it shows that this guitar has been played. I don't know if you can see now that the fingerboard down here looks very, very dry. Having done this, it's now drying out with sort of almost a salty look to it, bleached look. Don't be worried. That's just the fact that the wood has no oil in it right now because we've taken the finger grease away. So we'll replace that with, as we did earlier, with some lemon oil when we've done all the fret leveling and we're sort of in the final stages, ready to get into restringing the guitar. I still want to do once over on this with the block and the pointy bit so that we can get right up to the frets. I mean, it's not the end of the world, it just looks that little bit better. It's a small detail. Again, these things all take time, so... Ooh, that is so dirty. Yeah, it takes a bit of time and attention, that's all, like all of this work on the guitars. Somebody commented, I put a video up not long back, I can't remember, I think it was working on an Encore Strat, red Strat, and I had used some alcohol, rubbing alcohol to get off some sticker glue, I think it was probably, or quickly give a once over. And a poster on my YouTube channel quite rightly pointed out that you have to be careful using alcohol and nitrocellulose lacquer, because apparently alcohol weakens the lacquer and you can damage the surface. And I have to say, not something I had really read up on much before I did that, so it's probably a bit gung-ho, and no doubt he's probably right. I will say that the few times I've used alcohol to remove scratches and, sorry, not scratches, glue and sticker residue and stuff on guitars with alcohol, I haven't had any problems at all with the surface. So I would conclude that if you do it, if you have to do it, it's probably something you can get away with if you don't linger too long or work it too far into the surface, because I'm sure it has, if it lays on the surface and has time to interact with chemically interact with the nitro finish, then you may well have problems. But the occasions that I've used it have been very quick and topical, meaning that I've just used them to remove a particular spot and then wiped it off. Anyway, let's just go quickly down this now with the sharpened end, so I can just get in close to the frets. And what I'm doing is, I find that when you do these things butting up to a fret, it's probably easier, I find it easier to go down one side of the frets first and then come back and do all the others. Don't know why, force of habit, I guess. Some of this goo coming off now looks nice. It's distinctly pink. It's definitely, it's taking a little bit of the surface of the wood. That's okay. We're not doing any major long-term deep damage to it. And then I'll go back the other way. I can get this to a point enough. Quite difficult to work with this sort of pointed sandpaper because the point bends and you don't have a very good feel for where your working. Fingers always feels more accurate, but you have to trust that this is getting up close to the edge of the fret a certain amount. So once we've done this, we then move on into preparing the neck for the fret leveling. And the steps to do that are, first of all, if you have a neck that can be removed, take it off, it's easier. If you don't, that's okay. Like this one is a fixed neck, glued neck, so we're going to work with it on. But the first thing you need to do in both cases is to make sure that the neck is set level using the truss rod. So some people, I know from when I first did this, it can be quite a scary prospect, the idea of adjusting the truss rod. It seems quite mysterious and potentially dangerous. Don't be afraid of it. The truss rod is made to be adjusted by you. Sounds like an advert or something, but yeah, it's made to be adjusted by you and me. And the reason we adjust it is we're going to make sure that the neck is straight before we begin to make any adjustments to the fret height, because our way of leveling the frets, or checking the frets are level or not, is relative, each fret relative to the other. And to do that, it works better if we have all of our frets as close to level with each other to begin with, even though this technically isn't the way they will finally stack up when the neck is under load and we've dialed a bit of neck relief back into it, a bit of curvature, which is what we want. So I'm going to always start with level before we do this. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but that's brought out a nice amount of colour. It will dry and it will look bad shortly, so it won't look as pretty as this until we oil it, until it's been played in a bit as well. It'll take a little while to reabsorb some oils, a couple of oilings maybe, but I don't know if you can see, but it's a much warmer coloured fingerboard than it was before. It's just better looking, and it also feels cleaner in that I don't have to worry about somebody else's cheesy fingers. By comparison, this one, actually this one's not so dirty by comparison, so I'll get Thomas to take care of that one a bit later. We'll stick to this one. So for the time being, I'm going to move out my micro mesh papers. They're a really, really good investment for this job, working on guitars. Okay, so I'm just going to again rub this down, make sure it's as dry as it can be before we get onto the masking tape game, because we want the masking tape to stick at this point. And again, don't be alarmed that your fretboard suddenly starts to look like sort of desert floor, or sort of dried and almost dusty. It is very dry at the moment. Okay, so we're just going to put that there. Right now we don't need any more water, so we'll get that out of the way for the time being. Put it somewhere that I'm not going to kick over. And for this next part, I'm going to get my trusty plank out. So my trusty plank is really very useful for working with my trusty masking tape. This is a new roll. I'll use the old one first. So the purpose of this exercise is we're going to mask off the neck ready for fret leveling. I'm just going to double check it. I have set this neck as level as I can get it, and it's still in that condition, so I'm good about that. I can just start masking it off ready for work. And to do that we need to take our time with a few long strips of masking tape, and it's good to have a cutting surface like this ready. It's going to take time, there's no quick way around it, so the old advice is always true. If you're not the kind of person who can stick out and keep your attention focused for a long time on a job like this, you might want to reconsider whether you do this, because these jobs need that sort of focus. what they can't be is done quickly. So that sounds a bit funny, but first of all I'm going to cut some lengths in this tape. I've got basically 4 lengths, and I'm going to start with the thickest lengths, and just going to place them on the neck, on the fingerboard. And the idea with this tape is to get it right up to the edges, so that either the nut in this case or the fret. And you can see that that requires 2 pieces when we're down at this level of the neck. And the secret is just to get it right up to the fret metal. We don't want any fingerboard showing at all. Okay. Now you can either wrap it around the back now, or we can just keep on going and do the wrap around where we join up the tape, or put the tape to the back of the neck later. There's a little trick in there, so we might as well save it to the end. I'll just keep on going. So what you can see is, as we go down the neck, we're going to come to a point where, as the frets get closer together, this masking tape is going to be too thick. So we're going to need half cut pieces, cut long ways down so they're thinner. So that's why I cut some ready for that. And then by the time we get down here, we're going to need some 3rd cut pieces, which is why we've got a nice long cutting board and a sharp knife to do it with. What we don't want at all is using too big a pieces of masking tape, so that the tape goes up the edge of the frets. We need these frets completely exposed so we can work on them. But we do not need masking tape riding up the side of the frets at all, because that will stop us doing the finishing on the frets. Once we've levelled them, we have to do the job of finishing them. Okay, so I need some more single pieces, single thickness, but I've also got some halves waiting to go. Which I'll need any minute now. So I don't know if you're watching these Reloved Guitar workshop videos for the first time, what you won't necessarily know is that I make a video like this for every single guitar that we sell. And if you've watched more than one, you will absolutely be bored to death of me saying the same thing over and over again. But because these videos are intended for somebody who hasn't necessarily seen the others, and who's thinking maybe about buying this guitar, I'm going to go through the same stuff every time, which is quite interesting, because most people who do how-to videos online quite sensibly only do it once. So there you'll find Joe Bloggs's how to mask off and level your frets, for example, and there'll be one perfect video on exactly how to do that, showing you. And Joe Bloggs, who's done it quite rightly, will only have to do it once, and you'll get millions of hits, and then advertise or whatever, and become an internet sensation or something or other. But this serves a different purpose. This isn't that kind of video. This is the kind of video for somebody who's interested in this guitar, and helps them understand the work we've done on it. But because it's also intended for that person, I really want that person, matters to me that that person feels like they can do some of this work themselves in the future. Is why I explain what I'm doing again and again and again, and that's okay. I'm one of those people who has probably too many things to say every day anyway. Most of the time I just annoy my colleagues at work, or Claire or Thomas, or my kids Theo and Elliot, by saying too many things too many times. So this is a good outlet. Hopefully you've only ever watched this one video because you're thinking of buying the guitar. If you're unlucky enough to have watched several, then that's your fault. So here we are, getting ready to do probably the most important job on the whole guitar, and you can probably guess that just by looking at the attention to detail that's going into this part of it now. I set up Reloved Guitars based on a kind of an idea in my head, which I care a lot about. And that idea is I suppose you call it a theory, that any guitar, almost any cheap or budget guitar, can be a great playing guitar if they're set up properly. And the reason that they're not great playing guitars is because they're not set up properly. And there's a reason for that. And just to put it very simply, it's that it costs too much to put the time in to set them up. As a result, the world is full of badly set up or not set up electric guitars like these. Like, in fact, any guitar that comes through the Reloved workshop. There's millions of them out there. You've probably had dozens. And they're so badly set up that people, the learner player, usually finds out pretty quickly they can't live with it. It's just too hard to play, or it never stays in tune, or you can tune it up, but as soon as you start playing anywhere up and down the neck, it sounds awful. So the intonation is all wrong, and you just can't live with it. And most of the time, people then, quite understandably, get shot of it as soon as they can, chuck it on eBay, and then go looking for the big name guitar that they hope will give them a much better quality playing experience. And I think the sad thing is to think that an awful lot of people starting out and playing guitar get one of these budget guitars with a really, really awful action, find it impossible to play, and probably blame themselves and just think they're not progressing, it's not for them. And I think that's the terrible tragedy of this. So my theory that I began this with is that it's not true that you have to go and spend a couple of £1,000 or dollars or whatever to have a great playing guitar. And I started with the idea that all of these guitars suffer from a couple of common problems, and the first one, probably the first two in order of importance, are they all have uneven frets. And you might think, well, hang on, that guitar, this red guitar, if you watched the beginning of this video, you saw me play it or strum it, and it played, didn't it? Well, it did, but it would have played despite those uneven frets. And well, why wouldn't they have shown up? Why wouldn't you notice it had uneven frets? The reason you wouldn't notice it is because the action on most guitars, most budget guitars, is raised to disguise the problems with the uneven frets. And people don't think about it; they just do it. They hear the strings buzzing. They try and set a nice playing action. The strings start buzzing, so they raise the playing action again. And most owners, most youngsters who own one of these guitars, stop at a certain point where they've got as low an action as they can get without notes buzzing or being choked off. What they don't necessarily know is underneath that, the problem underneath that is uneven frets. And you might be surprised to know that every single guitar, other than something that's handmade by possibly Gibson or Fender or one of those expensive brands, high-priced brands, just about every single budget guitar you'll ever put your hands on has uneven frets, and they are not sorted in the factory and they are not sorted in the shop, because there is only one way of doing it, getting it right, and that is by hand. So the reason is, for them to sell you a budget guitar, they cannot afford to put the hours into doing what we're doing here. So that aside, Reloved Guitars is about making sure that these things play as well as they can, and I know that they can play fantastically well if you do this work. So the first thing that we do, or the place we spend a lot of time, is on this neck, and we make sure the neck is right. And the core of making sure the neck is right is getting the frets level. So hence we're doing all of this time-consuming work, fiddly time-consuming work. Once we've got the frets level, then we have to refinish them or reprofile them, which means we work on them till they're back into their original nicely rounded shape, because when we level them we take some material off the top and flatten them a little bit. So we have to reprofile them, and then once we've reprofiled them, then we have to polish them again to get them back into that lovely sort of metallic, shiny, mirror-like finish that allows you to bend strings and play fast. So all of that process, just to get that bit right, takes at least an hour and a half for every guitar. So with that in mind, you can start to see why, you can start to imagine how a factory would find that time to do it, and still keep the guitar cheap enough for you to buy at the £100 price or whatever it is that you insist on buying it when it reaches the UK or the US. So the factory can't really afford to spend this time, and nor can the retailer usually, whose job is to take the guitars out of their boxes from China, hang them up in a shop with all its overheads of staff and rent and rates and lighting and electricity and insurance and all that crap that goes with running a business. Sorry, it's not crap, it's important stuff that goes with running a business. And they hang this thing on the wall, but they can only charge a certain amount that you're prepared to pay for it. So these guys who do that, they can't afford to have some guy spending an hour and a half of their expensive time doing this. So they don't do it, because you won't pay the price it would cost if they did. So you can see the pattern there. So the bottom line is that in order to go out the door cheaply, cheap enough for you to want to buy, these guitars are completely unset up, which means, as I've mentioned, the frets are always uneven, and the surprise to you might be that every single guitar we've ever had in here has uneven frets. There's not a single guitar yet we've found that doesn't. Those uneven frets then limit the lowness of your action. They basically force you to have the action set higher than you probably want, and that's the best impact. At worst, they choke off certain notes and mean you can't play right up the top of the neck. And then on top of that, the next thing you can know about these guitars is that the next most significant area that separates these from a really well-made guitar is the nut. Okay, so you can get the neck perfectly, frets perfectly leveled, everything else being equal, everything beautifully put together, wiring done well, you can set the action perfectly, you can have a really great playing guitar, tunes up perfectly, but if the nut height or the depth of those slots for each of the strings is wrong by ½ millimetre or a millimetre, which they always are, it'll play badly. It'll be hard to play, or at worst it will be hard to play, and it will always feel or sound a tiny bit out of tune when you're playing notes or chords down here at the open end. So in two main areas is where these budget guitars suffer, and it's not in construction. I mean, this mahogany or whatever this is fantastic, the rosewood neck is great, tuners are good enough quality, pickups are pretty good, the Wilkinsons, everything about the materials in this is pretty good, right? Don't think for 1 minute that a $1,000 guitar is that much different in these materials. There is a difference in attention to detail, and the correct depth of the nut slots where the strings go through the nut, right? A detail like that, and a detail like the evenness of these frets, allowing you a full range of choices over the action you want to have it set at. Those are the kind of details that you will get when you pay a lot of money. So the good news is there's no reason why you can't attend to those details on a guitar like this and end up with a guitar for a lot less than a Gibson Les Paul, for example, which actually won't, when it comes down to it, by the time we finish this, won't play £1,000 worth better. So this is what we do with these guitars, and that's why we do it. So here we are, after talking my way through all of that, we've got the neck ready to all masked off beautifully. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around the back of this, and as I go around the back, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little trick here if you do this in the future. Don't just wrap these tabs, first one and then the other on top of itself. Right, if you want to make this easy to get off later on, when you get round this side, pinch the two flaps together into a little tab like that. Do you see what I've done? I've learned this the hard way, by the way. That gives you a tab that you can rip and pull off the whole piece. If you wrap them one round flat and then the other on top of that, you'll be scraping away with your non-existent fingernails forever. So there's my little secret tip of the day. Wrap this round, make a sticky tab, wrap it round, push it together as a little grab tab. There, trademark that. Okay, and it will make getting the thing off in the future one hell of a lot easier. You might not perfectly get it on all of them, but you can at least try to, because it will improve your sticky paper removal time. And I promise you, I want to get it clagged up like that, I promise you that by the time you've done all this hard work, and certainly by the time I've done all this hard work, getting these things off to see the beautiful shiny finished result and rush straight onto stringing the damn thing, it will be uppermost on your mind. So anything that kind of speeds that process along, you'll be grateful for. So at this point in the neck, it starts to get a bit difficult to do that. So you just got to do what you can. Obviously, the point of all of this is to just get these things tacked down. So at this end, we're not going to try and make them meet in the middle because we can't. There's not enough tape to go around, and we're just going to push them down in a way that we're pretty confident they'll stick in place, because we just want this masking tape more than anything to stay in place for the duration of the work we do on the frets. So pushing it in, butt it up against the edge of the neck is better than having it kind of stretched like some sort of sail. Okay, right, that will be good enough to work on. Right, there we are, our protected fingerboard, ready now to do our worst on the neck. And I'm going to now, I'll jump straight into it, since these videos are, even when they do them, they cut into sections, they end up being recompiled as one full video. Sorry. So we know the neck is straight. We flattened it. It's not under any pressure here other than a bit of gravity. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we do now to check for levelness. It's a very simple process, and I'm going to be careful with this because, yes, it reminds me, little alteration to my technique. I've caught myself in the past recently marking these frets, and the pen I used to mark it bleeds over onto the binding here, and sometimes underneath the paper even, to get onto the fingerboard, and it's really annoying. And it's a shame to have to try and clean that off with, I don't know, rubbing alcohol or whatever, or even emery paper, sandpaper. So I'm just going to go the extra distance here and add, if I can, mask off right up to the sort of level edge of the fingerboard on both sides, just to give myself that extra protection. Sometimes you might have to just tear it a little bit to get the paper to bend round. I'm going to do it on both sides. Yeah, it's one of those little details that I learned the hard way, ending up with a couple of really nicely set up guitars with blobs, unsightly blobs of permanent marker on the neck. Sorry, anyone who got one of those. Live and learn. Never said I was an expert. I said they were pro setups. Well, when you play them you'll know what I mean. That doesn't mean that I do everything in the way that you might expect a professional to do. I do my best. Okay. So I'm taking the time to go right up to the end here, because I know the trouble it can create for me if I don't. So I'm going to just go that extra mile because I want this to be right. It's one of those things, like I say, if you're doing it yourself at all, you might as well make sure this is right, because you're gonna, if you're going to do this in the future, when you finally take the masking tape off, and you see what a nice result you've made, a really nice level, really nicely polished frets, and then you know that you're going to put your strings on and find yourself a great playing guitar, you're going to be grateful or glad that you took the extra time to make sure this was all masked up. Okay, so here we are. I'm just going to support that neck again with my rubber block. So this is quite an interesting process. We're going to use what's called a fret rocker, piece of metal, but as I said quite a few times, it's not here. I don't have one. It could be a credit card. If it is a credit card, I would recommend, okay, I'll do a fake credit card. Imagine this is your credit card. Imagine this is your credit card, badly torn, right? Your credit card already has one long edge and one short edge. If it's your credit card, I recommend you cut another side on it, like, I'll do it really roughly, like that. I don't mean a credit card you have to use, I mean one that you don't care about. So cut yourself something like that. So then you'll have 3, 4 different sides, actually 5 different lengths. This one you'll notice also has 1, 2, 3, 4. But your credit card, if you cut it like I just did, would have 5. But basically, a credit card is good enough. So a low-tech method is to use a credit card, old credit card, or if you're like me, a new one would be a smart idea. Okay, so I've got a metal version fret rocker, and what we're going to do is you start down here, for example, and you take the longest edge and you place it across 3 frets. And the idea of this is to try and rock it backwards and forwards over the middle of the 3 frets. Okay, and if you can, you'll hear a clicking noise, and what it will tell you is that where you can hear the clicking noise, that part of the middle fret is higher than either side. Okay, so you can mark that. Now in this case it didn't. Unusually, for the first time in a long time, I might have to eat my hat on this guitar, because it might be all the frets are level. No. Hurrah! Listen to that. So the first thing you'll know is you can feel it and you can hear it. So this is telling me that from about here onwards, this guitar has a very high spot on that fret, and it's probably, judging by the edges of frets, it's probably not pressed firmly in. So I'm going to mark 2 things. I'm going to mark the fret, and I'm going to mark the paper next to it. And then I'm going to move on. Oh dear, more on that one. And that's from about there to there. Now, some people you might find would advise you different things to do. Everybody's got a different view, that's fine. I guess we all do what we do because we've worked out in our minds why to do it one way or why not to do it another way. So when I talk about a way I would do it, it's only because I've worked out to my satisfaction a reason for doing it one way or another. Doesn't mean you're wrong. You might have worked it out to your satisfaction, a way of doing it. That's fine. Let's not get into World War III in the comments about it. I don't like the way that everything YouTubey dissolves into race war at the end of it. Surely not, if we're just talking about different ways of doing guitars. Anyway, some people suggest that when you find a high spot on your guitar fret, that an easy way of fixing that is to get a hammer and tap it in. And I'm sure that when you do have a high spot on your guitar fret, banging it with a soft hammer probably will make it less, because you're either bashing the fret further into the wood or flattening it out a bit, whatever. The reason I don't do that is that even if it worked, first of all, it would be a very unscientific way. You wouldn't know how much lower you'd bashed that fret, you just know that you'd bashed it lower. We don't need to go that way. We need to know that it's exactly level with the others. So bashing it in doesn't give us enough control for my liking. Also, to my way of thinking, bashing a fret will actually create a trauma. So if you've got a fret that's sort of slightly sticking out and you bash it, right? Chances are, yes, you might bash it a bit further in to some unknown amount, which is not what we need. But equally, you might bash it and it might spring back up because you've you've kind of traumatized the wood or the slot that it's glued into. You may well break the glue fix, the glue bond. You may well push the thing into the wood, creating actually a deeper trench that it's sitting in, which then fails to hold it even more. So I'm not at all convinced bashing it with anything is a good idea. And even if it was, and even if it was perfectly simple, I don't do it because, as I said, the secret behind making these guitars play well is ending up with frets that are all level. And when you hit the frets to cure a high spot, you have no way at all of knowing whether they're level. You've just knocked it in a bit further if you're lucky. So you can see I don't do that, and I don't recommend it. But if you do that and it works for you, that's fine. I'm not prepared to murder your children or go to war with you about it, all right? And I'm not going to force you at gunpoint to convert to my way of doing it either. That doesn't work, IS, by the way. What a stupid thing to do. Sorry, guitar workshop, not political. Political religious. Don't get me started. No. The nice thing about doing guitars is that there's no kind of belief systems and stupidity involved in it. Just as we get to this point, so remember I said to you not a single guitar, not even the good quality guitars, comes through here without having high spots on the frets. There's a good example. These Wilkinson or John Hornby Skews made guitars are very well respected and well liked out there in the world of guitars, but even for your 350 quid and highly respected even at that price range, these things come out of the factory with high spots on the frets for the same reasons as I said before. So, you know, even Hornby Skews, good old Trev Wilkinson, whose work with these guitars I hugely admire, I think he's done a great job with the quality of these things, still hits the barrier at this fundamental expense, which is, you know, there's only one. The reason it's like this is he knows as well as I do, there's only one way of getting this right, and that's doing what we're doing. There's no machine that will do this. Think about it. You've got to level the neck. You've got to take a tiny layer off all of the frets. Well, actually, that's not true. You could make a machine to do it, but they don't. But what you wouldn't be able to do is you certainly wouldn't be able to do a comparative check like this. Now, if there are those who might argue, and they'd be right, that actually you don't need to do this comparative check. This is more of a for information thing. This tells us a map of what we've got. In reality, what we're probably going to do immediately afterwards is take an extreme measure called a fret leveling file to level all of the frets. Now, we could have done that without doing this checking and marking. So actually you don't need a machine to do this, because you could just get a machine to do that. So it's funny that you then have to have a machine to reprofile, which you could do, but you have to do each fret at a time, or you'd have to have a machine with this guitar held in perfectly in a jig, with a machine with loads of little files all perfectly matching every single fret, and then it would go in one go, and then you'd have to have a machine that then polished those things perfectly, instead of polishing it as a piece of fret wire before it goes onto a roll. So you could make machines to do it. I guess the thing still applies. It's money. It'll be money. It'll cost either to make a machine that does all this, cost in time, cost in materials, cost in infrastructure investment, so they don't. And the truth is, most people kind of like to buy into the idea that cheap guitars are rubbish, expensive guitars are the only ones you want, therefore I'm going to slag off all the cheap guitars and just save up my money until I can get a Gibson, and then I'll be sorted. My problems will disappear. And in a way, I guess there's a degree of truth in that. Handmade guitar, Gibson, with attention paid to every single one, getting it absolutely right. I'd love to get hold of a few Gibsons and check them for fret levels. That would be really interesting. But I would seriously hope that they were in perfect condition. Anyway, so whatever the reason, we know that, or you can take my word, that this pattern of high frets is completely normal for every guitar that's been through this workshop. But whilst it's completely normal, that doesn't in any way minimise the impact it has on the guitar, the playing the guitar, because just because every guitar has this problem doesn't take away from the fact that the result is that you can't set the action the way you'd like it, and it's just, the action ends up being high, like every second-hand guitar you've ever, most second-hand guitars you've ever come across. I think you've probably all come across one at your friend's house which is just superb, and you just think, why is that so much better than mine? And it's that guitar that actually doesn't even bear relation to the brand. I remember a guy I grew up in school with years ago, a guy called John O'Sullivan, who plays now with a band called the Snakes in London, and with another band called Limousine. And John was a kind of inspiration to my schoolboy guitar dreams, because he was just one of these naturally gifted swines. But I remember going to gigs, and John had a guitar that even at the time we schoolboys knew was a knockoff copy, in the 70s, late 70s, and it was an Antoria, which nowadays would probably, you'd probably raise a bit of money with that on eBay, because they're quite fondly remembered from the 70s. But it was an Antoria. Nobody really compares, and would ever consider comparing that to any other brand. But I remember the thing that really stood out about John's Antoria SG is that the action was like nothing any of us had ever played on our own guitars, and it was just sickeningly good. And we didn't know what had happened to it to make it like that, and he never told us, cunningly. So we never knew. But you remember it, so you always remember that one guitar that somebody's done something to in the past, but nobody quite knows what. But it sticks in your mind because it's that good, and it's a shame. It shouldn't be that rare. So this is what we're working to change here. So there's your map. All of these frets are uneven, and we just got a visual. I should take a photograph of every single fret map of every guitar. In fact, I'm going to do that right now, just to prove to myself that there's no pattern in it. It's always kind of random, but it's always around about the same amount. So here we go. A shot of fret problems on the vintage V100 CS. Ta-da! I feel like people going out to the Maldives to study the patterns on the wings of manta rays. I saw a program about that. It made me so jealous. Anyway, okay, so here we are. We know what we're facing. So the first thing here is, had we done that and found no high spots, or maybe one high spot, I would have recommended that we take care of that using a fairly simple method. And that method, as shown to me by somebody on YouTube once, is perfectly viable. You could do the whole thing in this method, by the way. You don't need a fret file. 25 quid's worth. But if it was just one spot, I would take care of it with some 320 sandpaper. This is aluminium oxide, I think. 320 sandpaper, a block. The guy in the video used a 9-volt battery, but this is a fret rubber for shining the frets, just as a surface, and I would just take it away a little bit, and then I would do a check until it's gone. And that way you could just take care of one or two of these, and you wouldn't need to reprofile all the other frets, because the next job, we've got 2 more stages to do. Whenever we've done something to the surface of these frets to level them, we have to reprofile every fret that we've touched with the leveling process. And you can see that could be 22 if we do all of them. If we just do one, then we've only got to reprofile that one. We still have to repolish them all because they've all got a bit grotty and grungy over time. So I think there's too much there to do with this method. Thomas, my stepson and willing, able assistant in here, would probably continue doing it like this. He likes this process. It leaves him very much in control. He drew a nasty face on this and he called it evil. He doesn't like it. If you do it this way, you create a bit less work with the reprofiling. If you use this, you do this bit quicker, do all of the frets, and then you have to reprofile everything. I preferred it that way because what it allows me to know is that I've got everything level, and it allows me to also take up any grooves that you often find down at this end. Okay, so I'm a fan of this. Now, one of the things I just noticed on this guitar, I'm going to take a moment to take care of, is that if I'm going to use this fret file, right, I don't want it scraping the top off my pickups. So while I'm at it, I'm going to wind these down as far as I can get them out of the way, just to be on the safe side. And I'm also going to cover them with. Can I wind them down? Are you going down? No, you're coming up. Are you going? Oh shit! You're going anywhere? Now you are. Down. I'm also going to cover them in masking tape, just to be as sure as I can that I'm not going to do any damage to them. I'm giving them a little push as I do this as well, just to help them on their way. Ah, see, that's interesting. That's wound out. Can I get that back in far enough? Yep. Okay. Yeah. So just always err on the side of caution. If you think anything's going to get in the train of the fret file, just cover it off. This masking tape's pretty good. It will protect everything up to a point. You'll certainly know if you'll know if you're kind of hitting it. Now I can see that there's a bit of easy clearance there. I just wanted to be safe rather than sorry. Okay, so here we are ready to go. I'm going to use the fret file, and I'm going to make sure the fret file takes some off, all of the frets, but what it will do is it will take most off the high frets. Now there's a couple of ways I can do this. I can either start with the fat end down here and bring it back, which I've found is quite good to do, or I can start at this end and push. What I find is when you use this, is whichever end you start at, you often, it's easy to underuse it at that, so if you start there, you often find that you kind of miss, you don't press down, and then you really start to bite there, and you can often miss these bits and have to do it again. It's a game of just being light touch, and I can't really show you any other way other than by experience. When I did this for the first time, it was really, really nerve-wracking. I didn't have a neck to practice on, so I did it live. I now have a spare neck, which we can practice on. But now I do it. I had to do it live for the first time. So, and I pushed it this way, and it went kind of okay, and then it chattered a bit. You can sometimes find that your pressure is a bit too low, and it skips. But it worked out in the end. So I'm going to start at the far edge, and I can feel that I'm going to put my pressure on here, and I'm just going to go once down to the end, and I can hear it taking off, and I can see the shiny bits where it's taken it off. And it hasn't, interestingly, it hasn't gone right to the edge, it's near the edge, so I'm just going to do another one right on the edge, so I know that I've got everything on that fret. And then I'm going to come into the middle a bit more, and again in the middle, and then come to the left, and I'm going to stop and just look at what I've got. And not easy for you to see in this light, but I've got pretty much every, well, first of all, what you notice is that you've got lots of little swarthy bits, so you know it's taken off some material quite aggressively from your frets, but that's what you wanted to do. These actually have a slight gold look to them, so I don't know if they're some different kind of material from normal, but so I can see down here that it's definitely, everywhere I had a high fret, it's definitely taken off the high material, the stuff that I marked with black. There's no black pen that is unscathed. Well, there's a tiny bit right at the edge here, which I'm going to take care of now. So after having done that, there's no black marker that isn't addressed. And what you can see sometimes is actually it sort of correlates, because the most metal is always taken away where the black marker is, and sometimes to the side of it you see it's quite visibly less material has been taken. So in a sense that could be all I need to do, but the thing I really want to do straight away is go back to the spots that I know I've marked up as high, and what I'll do, by the way, is I'll just brush off all of this swarf. You don't really want as little of this metal stuff floating around inside the guitar. I'll go back and I'll check these points, right? So, you know, I'd expect to find this high here. It's still high because that was significantly high. That's the one thing you don't know, is how high it was. Now, all other things being equal, if everything else is kind of equal, what I don't want to do is use the whole fret file again just for one tiny spot, and that's where it would make a lot of sense now to use. There's a bit more to do on there. And actually, if I want to be precise about this, I might make a second layer of marks just to tell me there's a bit more to do here and here, and there's a bit more. Where is it? Where was it? Right on this end bit here. So I'm giving myself, it could be another colour, might be easier, but I'm just giving myself something else just to look at. So we're nearly there, and it's good not to expect it to do it all in one go, because it won't. It's done most of it, that's the thing. That was a very high one, so we've got a chunk here that's not taken care of. So depending on how much we find on the second run, sometimes it's done in one go. If the high spots are very slight all the way up and down this neck, you will find that one pass will be all you need. If you require a second pass, you need to then do what I'm doing now, which is to mark up what is still visibly high, noticeably high, I should say. A tiny little bit there. So there's a few tiny little bits to go. Most of them on the right hand side. So given that, I'm going to make a call that I'm going to run down this side again, because they're mostly grouped here in this area and a little bit down there. So I can do another run here and then it will clip down there. If it was just one, like that one, I would do it with this method here, because I don't want to upset everything else. Having said that, I'm now going to do this. So I'm going to go back to my first one, which was way off, and that tiny bit on the end. And that's still a tiny bit high on the end, so I'm just gonna literally do the spot method to rub this down to try and take that high bit down at that end. Just have a quick spot check again. It's almost there. Okay, and then we're going to, hopefully these high spots up here will have been taken care of by that run. Just remember, you go for where you marked the second one up. There's a tiny patch there, again, which I'm going to do with this technique rather than go over it with the whole thing. That's pretty close. This one a bit left over on here, which again I'll do with a spot. This is actually proving more difficult than many that I've done recently with this fret leveling file. And all it's proving to me is that to my surprise really, that the frets on this vintage guitar, which has so many good reviews in all kinds of other ways, are quite extremely out, comparatively extreme anyway, in a couple of places, which kind of resisted at least 2 or more passes on the fret leveling file, which is quite unusual to be that far out. Normally 1 or 2 passes will easily clear it up. Nearly there, but still that little bit to play. So you can see, if these frets here are taking that much work, you can guess that that's quite a few microns higher than the rest of the frets, in which case your playing action is going to be dominated by what this fret allows you to do, until we've taken it down like we are doing now. And that's the bit that is that's the bit that I realised was the secret to this, is that 1 or 2 really high frets will dictate the action, and if you could take the time to bring them back to the same playing action, then you really would have a lot more options, and that's what this is all about. Okay, just to okay. All right, long process this. Pretty much there. Okay. Right. So we have now levelled our frets. Now we have to do the 2 remaining stages, which is to reprofile them. Some people call it recrowning. Some people call it redressing. I call it reprofiling because it sort of makes the most sense, because your fret has a profile that looks a certain way. Imagine that's the profile from the side. There's the fingerboard, there's another fret. I know, every time I draw this it looks like a woman's breasts, but hey, titter titter. Oh, what we've done is we've taken the top off one, let's imagine it brings it level with that one. We've levelled this one off by removing the top, but what we then have is a curved side and a flat top and a curved side, and that's no good. We need the profile to be right, and so we're going to aim to reshape this fret so it looks more like the dotted line, so that we keep the same height here. And we don't want to take any height off the top, it's critical, but we take a bit of the side off it to give us that nice curved shape here. Instead of goes up in a curve, flat, down in a curve, we're going to re-profile it like that. And then we'll have a nicely re-profiled fret. And the critical bit here though is not reducing that height anymore. If we reduce this height anymore, i.e. we reprofile it and we get that, then we've created an uneven problem again, which is pointless. So this is where our marker pen comes in handy again. So we having filed all of these, we go with our marker pen and draw. We cover them, every fret from top to bottom, in black marker pen. All of them, because we've touched all of them with the file. And then the beauty of this marker pen, the reason we use it, is that it allows us to file these frets and keep an eye on how much metal we're taking off. And the idea will be to reprofile each fret. We'll do the sides of each fret and leave a thin strip of black down the middle. And if we can leave about 1 millimetre down the middle of each of these frets, then we know are we still recording? I can't tell with this machine. Hello, 1 hour 14 minutes. Oh, we're not counting seconds now, are we? Right. Yeah, if we can leave a millimetre down the centre of this, then what we've got is a fret that we've reprofiled, but we haven't taken any height off the top, which is exactly what we want, because we know that all of our heights now are even, because we've gone through all of that fret levelling work. So just to show you what we're doing, I'm going to get my Ronnie Barker spectacles on for this. So we take our three-sided file. It's got a soft edge here, a flattened edge, and we put it down onto this, and we go from one side first. We'll start this side, and we just basically scrape it along the fret until we feel it biting, and we can see it taking the black marker pen away, and we can see it it's biting into the metal. And we just work the sides of this by tipping the fret slightly over until we come near the top of the fret, but we don't skip across. We've got to make sure that we stop before we go across the surface of the fret, because we'll just make more trouble. Then we switch to the other side. Same thing, start with the top surface of this file horizontal, feel it biting the side of the fret, and then begin to turn the fret towards the top of the file, turn the file towards the top of the fret, and you can see now that the shiny cut metal is now coming up to meet the little thin line of marker pen that we haven't touched. And then the end, with both sides worked, and a little thin strip of, where are you? A little thin strip of black on top, which will be the surface that we then work to smooth down to make sure it's a nice playing surface, but we will not reduce its height any more in comparison to the fret next to it. And once we've done all of these frets, then we begin a polishing process, which will allow us to prepare the playing surface, if you like. But we'll be doing it with a set of frets where the height has been untouched by files, and we know that because each fret's got this little piece of black marker pen down the side. Now, for your sanity and mine, I'm going to stop the recording at this point and put on some radio, go and make a cup of tea, and come back to this. Hello, back again, and since we last saw each other, I have reprofiled all of these frets on this vintage V100 Les Paul copy, left a tiny little thin line of black marker pen down the centre of each one, so that I know that they're all the same height as they were when we had just levelled them. So what I'm going to do now is move my phone out of the way so that we don't get interference. So I'm going to now look at shining these frets, and to do it, or to polish them. So to do it, we're going to use a range of papers. The first thing to say is that the top of this, or the sides and the top of the frets now, is being scoured by a mixture of this creature here, the fret levelling file, and this baby here, the triangular dressing file or crowning file or whatever it is called. But either which way, we've left a lot of scratches on all aspects of these frets now. So we're going to need to smooth them off. And experience has shown me that if I go to too soft or too fine an abrasive paper too early, then what happens is I don't manage to take the scratches out, and we end up trying to polish slightly scratched frets, which look great until you put strings on the guitar and then play it. So experience has shown me that I need to do a bit more work at the rough end, but of course there is a risk that comes with that if we use a 320 paper, for example, then we run the risk of doing effectively what we did when we used 320 paper to level the frets a bit earlier on. However, what we could try to do is make sure that we do the same thing all the way across, so that we're using a 320, but we are making sure that we do it in a way that all the frets get an equal amount of treatment. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it first with a block, so I know that I'm getting the same sort of pressure all the way across, and then I'm going to do it by hand, allowing the paper to run up and down the sides of the frets. So here we go. First of all, let's get straight into it. 320, up and down the fret, all the way to the end, each way. So we are clearly going to be taking some height off these frets, and hopefully we're applying the same pressure all the way across the frets, which means if we are taking some height off the fret, we are taking the same amount off each one. Now, if I put on my microscopically high res grandeur glasses, I can see straight away that I've taken out pretty much all the big, well, no, I haven't done up there, there's a bit more to do up there. I've taken out most of the big scratches in these fret tops. And what I'm trying to do is just ensure that we don't begin the polishing process with any of the we don't want to begin the polishing process with any of the really big deep gouges still left in the frets, because that would be sort of hiding to nothing if we do that. Now, I've done that, and I'm going to presume that my frets are still level, pretty much level. We have a little bit still going on here. That's interesting. Is that right? No. Tiny bit. You find it one minute and then you lose it the next. So you can't hurt doing this as many times as you need to get this thing exactly right. If you've got a bit of trouble showing up, give it another quick go till you get it. That was enough there. Just going to keep in mind on where we were, and I'm just going to make sure that we reprofile that fret. Again, I'm not using the black marker here. I'm going to do it by eye. And we're just going to really double check the spots that we have most problems with. Particularly the later ones. Tiny bit there. Just going to make sure that before we get all of this smoothed out, we're not going to do this with any inherent problems still in there. Got a little bit on the edge here still showing up. Better to have this last little bits of unevenness taken care of at this stage, even if the frets are in essence a little bit flatter than I'd like. In fact, if I'm going to do this properly, I could make sure I get this bit done, and then I could use the marker and go back and just put myself a little re-profiling on there. But I don't want to carry on with this until it's correct, until it's as right as it can be, because this is where the future playability of the guitar resides. It's in this actions here, these actions here. A tiny bit more on the edge. Okay, I am going to reprofile this one just to make sure, because there's no reason to leave it rough. taking care of any last little bit here, so that we've got. Now the good thing about having done these last little corrections with the 320 paper is that we'll find that there aren't any deep gouges on top. There may be slightly more on the sides as a result of using this file now, but there won't be any directly on top, so we don't have to go over the top again with this particular fret. We just need to make sure that the sides are taken care of as we go around sharpening the whole thing. Okay, so that's okay. Just double check any last fuse. Tiny bit left there. Tiny bit. Tiny bit into this one. Tiny bit at the end of one of these here, that one, and that one. Again, we'll just use the 320 paper just to make sure we try and take that a little bit down, and then we can proceed with our, or recommence our polishing. Close, very close. A little bit on the edge here. Okay, right, so let's sort out the last couple of high bits. Let's just check this one down here again, make sure we're okay with that. Yep, okay. So everything polished to the same sort of height. Now I'm just going to do the same thing with my fingers, rolling up and down. Just make sure I do all frets as much as each other. Of course, this will be taking it down a few microns, but hopefully the idea is that it takes it down the same amount relative to each other. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a 600 paper, followed by 1000, and then we'll get into our micro mesh. Again, the same technique, rolling my fingers so that the paper goes over the top of the frets. Again, we see we're doing this dry, so the paper won't last as long, I suppose, as when it's wet. But I don't want to turn the masking tape at this point into a gooey mush. Okay, and then I'm going to go to 1000. And sometimes it's difficult to make sure you get the frets at the end as much treatment as the others. The ones down at the headstock end often get more treatment because they're easier to reach in some sort of way. So this is my 1000 paper. Again, taking the finer scratches up now, we hope. And having done 1000, now we can go straight into the micro mesh, which goes from 1500, 1500 right the way through to 12,000. And I'm just going to do this with my hand. And there we go. Off we go into final polishing. before. Again, a good reason for having the masking tape over the end there, because it's all too easy to run off onto the finish of the guitar. Okay, 3200. $600. $4,000. $6,000. $8,000, and we're nearly there. After this, we will do the final going over with Dremel and some polishing compound, just to add that last bit of shine to it. And then we're on 12,000, final piece. And with luck, we should at this stage have frets that are polished and scratch free. That's the idea behind this. I mean, it is possible we could go back a couple of steps if we really wanted to, and go across the grain, which is something we haven't done in any of these. To give it a sort of last polish up. Make sure we've got rid of any tiny chips or scratches or imperfections. But again, at 8,000, hardly any abrasive work taking place there. But it gives it a last little bit of polish. It's not a problem to do it. And again, one more time with a 12. Some lunch in a minute. When you do this, you start to realise it's quite energy sapping. I suddenly feel like hungry. Okay. And finally, our friend the Dremel. We've got one slightly worn out polishing wheel. I think we'll get by with just that one. We might chuck this after that. When you're doing polishing with the Dremel, whatever you do, be really careful so you don't hit the chuck when it's spinning against the frets. That's the biggest risk of all. Because if you do that, sorry, is it the collet or the chuck? I don't know. The metal bit. If you do that, you will ruin whatever finish you've already put on the frets in a split second, and you will have no alternative but to redress them all again. There's no easy way around. You can't just do one or two at this stage. You'd have to just level everything again. Doable, there's enough fret material on it, but you really don't want to be doing it. Having spent so much time already. So whatever you do, keep that pointing upwards. It'll spit a bit of polish everywhere, but we'll live with it. Consider that done. And this is one very mucky pile of sticky tape now. I guess the trick we've got to do is to take this off without getting the rest of the guitar too filthy. Now remember, I said these little tabs would really help you. And here's how they help. So with those we can get quite a long way towards getting this stuff off easily. There's a little bit of paint come off there from a repair that the previous owner did with some, which looks like red nail varnish. Hasn't taken very well. But, yeah, we'll do what we can, I suppose. If you need to, use your fingernails, but not a knife. Try and use a knife, you will pay for it in the worst way, because it will just cost you in terms of scratches that you will never get out. Either scratches on the paintwork itself or scratches on the fingerboard, on the frets, which will negate everything we've just done, which you really don't want to be doing. Having spent so much time, this is the payoff moment where we get to see the results, or feel the results of our hard work. So that's where you've got to be patient right to the end. Again, you can see this is not a quick process even to get this off, and there are some bits that take hard work to get unpicked. But when they're off, you can chuck the grotty stuff away, and then we'll give it a good overall polish up. We might need to give the frets a quick wash. The fretboard sometimes gathers some of this the goo that we've been working with the Dremel down onto the fingerboard itself, in which case we would give it a quick clean off. And some of this tape leaves a bit of sticky residue every now and then, but it's a small price to pay for keeping our wood nice and clean. So yeah, lots of, it's quite dirty everywhere after doing this. Come on. Time consuming, but better safe than sorry. So you can see muck everywhere, but check our blob of goo away. And I can see plenty of dust everywhere, so that can benefit from a good clean. And the frets, well, they haven't got dirty from that last process, but they do show, they're kind of darker around the frets themselves where we did, where we couldn't get that close in when we were cleaning them, cleaning the fingerboard. Hard to get that close in. Anyway, so we now have frets that we can just get up and down the edges of them. There will be some gunge that you can pull out with your cloth, but it's pretty much done now, and I'll show you in a minute. But we've got a very nice fretboard and a much cleaner fingerboard than we had before, which is now ready. We've got some goo on there that we'll need to try and clean off with something or other. But generally speaking, there we are, frets all levelled on a flat neck, polished, reprofiled, reshaped and polished, smooth as anything, ready to be played. And what we can do is put on some oil to darken the fretboard, make it look nice and warm, nice warm red rosewood colour that it had before. And then we'll be ready to move to the next stage, which I think in this guitar is probably going to be restringing. I've sorted out the tuning machines already. There was one of them that was a bit broken, so I've sort of repaired it. It's not the best repair in the world, but it's a lot better than it was, so it works. So we can reinstall those, give everything a clean as we're going, and then get ready to restring, and we should be ready to play. Lovely. That's a fine looking reconditioned neck. That will give us an action. That neck condition now will give us an action that we've never had on this guitar, or nobody's ever had on this guitar. But that's the nice part about doing this. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Next stop, installing the bridge and then restringing. Yo, hello again. Still Sunday afternoon, and welcome to the last bit of this setup of our vintage V100 Les Paul copy guitar, which actually is now starting to look pretty good. It's starting to look like we're in sight of the final hurdle, of whatever the thing is, the finishing line, I suppose you can call it. It's a quick run through where we've got to. We've done the fret levelling, we've reinstalled, am I making something rattle? Reinstalled the tuners. One of them I put back on, this one, and its thing was pointing the wrong way, so I turned it the other way around and then it was in the wrong position, and I couldn't for the life of me work out how I got a right-handed tuner in a left-handed slot. Had somebody come in and changed it over in the night, and I had to think backwards to remember that in fact what I'd done was I took this apart to repair it and put the turning peg on the opposite side, put it back together again, so I had to take it apart again and reinstall it with the tuner on the correct side. Bloody silly me. Anyway, all's looking good. The only slight area of possible concern is the switch, which may be faulty. which may necessitate another time us taking drastic action to replace it altogether. 1 second, this is rattling in a not so good way. Don't know why that is. Okay, so we're on the get this strung up leg of the game here, and I think what is quite good is if we test it out and it's all in good working order, I think we can take some pictures of this tomorrow, or maybe a bit later if the sun stays. Occasionally the sun is shining. I've just been into the field over there to recover my recording thing. I like to record ambient sounds, relaxing white noise sounds, and I've just recorded an hour and a half of the big ash trees blowing in the wind because it's quite a windy day. And to do that, I strapped my Tascam recorder, which this is where the sound for these videos comes from. It comes off this unit here, velcroed to the wall through a cable, which goes into the GoPro. Hence we get good quality sound where you can't normally get it on a GoPro. Anyway, that unit was strapped to a tree branch out in the field there, recording some nice ambient sound. You may think I'm mad, but it's actually really good for studying, reading, falling asleep on the train. Anyway, I had to go into the field to get it, and I think I upset the cows, so they're all kicking off right now. Okay, so here we are, the final stages. I forgot what kind of guitar we were working on for a minute. Final stages here. We've got a kitten climbing around in the background. Morris, you're going to cause an accident in here. Where do you think you're going? Can you get out through there? You can, but you won't. Yeah, I forgot I was working with a Les Paul arrangement. So no more pushing strings through the body. Hooray! So, stages of the game now are, we're going to string up the guitar and we're going to put it under load, and then we're going to first of all set the neck relief back to the way it should be for playing, which is not exactly straight but with a little bit of relief in it. Once we've done that, then we're going to set the playing action. Once we've got the playing action roughly about right, we're going to check the height of the nut slots, which, as I explained in some detail before, makes a major difference to how the guitar plays, up to the level that it's probably the second most important thing in the way your guitar plays. That's interesting. Oh God. We have a knackered tuning machine. Booger. This could put everything on a bit of a hold. I can't make this thing do any better. Well, can I? No, it's... What's it doing? It's clicking off. Now, before I do any further damage to this string, which I really would prefer not to do, because at least I can use it again, let's take this off for a second. What it tells me is that we've got a problem with this reconditioned tuner, which could mean we're going to be forced to end up buying another one, which is a real pain. It's such a shame. It could be the same for all of these, for all I know. When it's not under load, it's quite comfortably turning around, but under load it's skipping, and that has to be because, yeah, nice one. It has to be because the gearing is slipping inside, which is such a shame, because that means we have to put this on hold for a week or so until we get a replacement. Might even be tempted to get a replacement set, given that we might even have this problem on... Actually, we don't. No, it wasn't as bad a problem on the other guitar, but we may have similar problems, and they're the same, basically the same tuner. That's really annoying. I can't see any way of stopping this from happening. I wonder why that is. I mean, is it... Well, I think they're in. Yes, Morris, they're in end of the. That's definitely. It's either got too much room to move, or something's broken. The tooth is broken on it. I can feel it. And the difficulty with this is that these little splines are so difficult to get apart. We need to get it in the vise again. Start bashing it around. So it's really not built for this kind of treatment. That's a shame, because I was really looking forward to getting that done today. Damn. Maybe could pinch one from the other one, but then slightly different. These are supposedly gold ones. It really is very annoying. That's, you know, that's the price we pay with this guitar. We knew it was damaged from the start, and so it's proved to be. Well, actually that's not true. This one we didn't know was damaged, but now I do. So that's the price we pay for getting it cheaper. I'd like to know what it was that's making that slip. Can't think there's much in there to move. There's not a lot of room, so without being able to put this comfortably into the vise, which actually would, if anything, would benefit from being on the desk for this operation. I'm going to put this string out of the way for a minute. I can put this chap down. Too many guitars in the way. I'm going to just bring up this old vise of mine. Spare strings in case I need them. So we can take apart the and just pull apart. Pull apart the tuner and see if it's at all salvageable. I have a sneaky feeling that it's not. It's also incredibly difficult to manipulate. We don't have the tools really for it. So without a screwdriver, it's a bit of a blunt tools approach. So. I wonder. Let's just shove this little screwdriver in here a minute, which it won't fit, of course. Want to put something in here to stop it spinning. Cocktail stick, too big. Damn. Well, maybe I'll stop it moving for a minute. Now it's interesting, having done something to it, it feels like it's biting again, but I don't know what I've done to it to make it bite. But it's not. You can see. So I'll have to pull it apart and see if there's anything obvious. That requires us jamming it quite roughly into a wholly inappropriate vise. I'll put it under a lot of squeezy pressure. And you can see us treating it somewhat roughly here. messy now, I'm afraid. Been opened up one too many times for my liking. I would not be at all surprised if the thing breaks very shortly. So I'm just going to try and hold these in place. Yeah, it's skipping over, so the only thing we can do now is to prise it open as before. Got a little bit sort of prehistoric way of doing things, unfortunately. And they're not exactly precision made bits of kit in the first place. So I'm just trying to have a quick look and see if there's anything that's obvious about this. Is there anything clearly broken? No, that's okay. So why is that not? Could it be? No, it's in the right place. So the idea of that is it's got to be up close enough to the thing, whatever the thing is, the thing. It's still slipping. That's a real shame. What does that tell me? It tells me it's too far away. I can't see any way of getting it closer, apart from tapping that one in first. Let's see if there's. We'll see if there's any possible way. We want to get this one in first so it's closer. That's top wise. As you can see, we are kind of making this up as we go along. So top one will bring the whole thing that way a bit, we hope. Could be that alone pulls it just into place enough. We might be lucky. I don't know though. I'm not hugely hopeful. Just tap this one down to kind of lock it shut. This is the no, it's not good. Going the wrong way. This is the Stone Age version of fixing things. That tab knocked flat as it will go under the circumstances. Now that's clearly not working. That's amazing. Doesn't you now have it put together again in a way that doesn't even turn it at all? How did we manage that piece of skill? He's not even touching it. I have a horrible sneaky feeling that something's well, so we are now moments from these lugs snapping off, quite rightly because they're not meant for this. I think we've just about done all we can do to it, including that. Yes, I will be looking for a new one of these because this is no longer playing the game. Let's see what's broken off in here anyway. Yes, total shame, really. What a pity, what a pity it is. It's amazing how much room there is to play in here for this not to match up. You wouldn't think it was. You'd think it was that tight that you put these two things together and it can't fail to match up with the one set of teeth into the cogs of the other. But evidently this is not the case. That's locked nicely, and that's saying let's try this way. We've had a look at it that way. Can't possibly do it. Okay, so it's the first one. Let's take that to there. First one. First one. Do we get it to turn? We get it to turn. Is it going to turn without clicking? That's amazing. Another tap to try and lock it a bit closer. It's turned it into putty by now. Let's turn. It's interesting now that's working. Quite funny if we could get it working with just this brute force. And frankly, that's all we've got, so we haven't much choice really. Close up. Twang. Now, that's amazing how that now no longer connects with the gear. That's pulled it too far that way. Unbelievable. So I guess there's only one more thing we can do, which is tap the whole thing down that way. definitely not in contact. Amazing. That's quite something. Just amazing. Now it's connected. The problem we got is we can't bend these tabs down without distorting the whole thing, which is a real pity. If I could, I would. If I could, I would. That's about as much tightened as I'm ever going to get regarding these things. The good news is that it's finally got the bloody teeth biting again. I might have to live with it as ragged as all of this. Still want this thing tightened up a bit. How do I get this thing tightened into place? Can I hold it there even? No, that bends too much. Can I hold it there even? No, that's too, maybe. No, doesn't allow. Can I hold it there? And then it doesn't let me bite it. Can I hold it there? Can't attach it enough. Purchase on this, as they would say. A bit loose, possibly not connecting. Amazing, amazing, just incredible, actually. So that is rather amazing. So we need that to go up. Don't have any possible chance to do it. I'm going to have to write this off as a waste of time from here on in. I cannot make this piece hold tightly to the plate that it's on, sadly, and as a result I can't get the two to connect far enough to work. I can, but it's very crude. So this is what I got for, basically came with the guitar, a 40, one of these. And without any other means to fix this or put it back together again in the right order, I am kind of out of quite literally out of options, sadly. I literally have no more grabbing room to make these things connect better or tighten up. Everything slips off when I try it. No more. If I could even just squeeze it together in some sort of way, that would be quite good, but I can't because it doesn't work like that. certainly not on this vice. Squeeze it forever, but it won't do anything. Well, funnily enough, having said that, squeeze that together and it does work, possibly long enough for the time being. Let's see if I can just tidy it up a little bit, which will probably result in it suddenly not working again. This is the way it's been every time I've tried to do something. It's so annoying. Probably easier to see this without the cloth on it. I mean, I can squeeze that into place. Still got some bite there. That may just have done it. Let's try this. That'll be quite some achievement if we do get it working. I think it's clear that we need a new one. There's no two ways about that. Let's see if it'll work long enough to do the rest of the work on this guitar. It'd be kind of nice if it did. I'm just doing that to keep the switch off the thing. Right, let's just rewind a couple of minutes. Pretend this never happened. Damn it. And we'll go back to square one. If it works long enough just to get it playing now so we can do the rest of the intonation and everything, and then I will be on the lookout for another one on eBay. I might end up cutting out all of this because it's very boring for you to watch me getting nowhere at the same time as bludgeoning bludgeoning something to death. The other thing that we've got a problem with, really annoyingly, is that this stupid guitar has stripped its screws attaching the tuners quite a while back, so there's obviously had quite a bit of problems somewhere. All that means that these screws are now slightly too small to hold these parts in place, and I either need to fill them or replace them with a slightly larger screw if I can find one, which is going to make everything look a bit different in comparison, but they are fatter screws and will hold the thing better. But it could be I'm in for a game of perhaps filling the holes and trying to screw on top of that, but actually this works. I got lucky with a couple of slightly oversized screws here. We're assuming that this tuner even holds long enough to get the guitar playing. We'll see. Thankfully the spares bag came up trumps there. Cows are still going crazy after my incursion into the field. Okay, let's go back to where we were. See if we can get any grip on this. We'll know pretty soon if we can or if we can't. I'll take it right back to where it was crimped before, and give it a gentle spin the other way. Okay. There we go. Prefer if you didn't slip much. Alright, that's better than it was. It'll allow me to play it for a while. Okay, good. We're sort of back on track, as you can see. Not anticipated, not the way I wanted it to be, but all in all, slightly better than it could have been a minute ago. but that tuner is definitely going to get replaced. In fact, sadly it might have to be a whole set, which is not a great idea in terms of the expense, but what it, I suppose on the plus side, it gives us a set of spares for other occasions, which is always a good thing. And that's the only good thing about having doing something like Reloved Guitar. If we were just a punter, that would be a really annoying expense to have to go and buy just one. Okay, now you can see at the moment, I mean, you might not be able to see, but at the moment all the strings are decking out on the pickups at the moment, so it means the whole action, everything's too low to begin with, but that's fine. We'll just get them on and then we'll worry about raising the action and playing around with the truss rod at that point as well. Unfortunately, these are not the fantastic easy lock tuners that Wilkinson are so well known for. I'm not sure why they didn't put these on these guitars, because everything else about the guitar is nice quality. What I haven't done is press these little ferrules down properly. That's annoying. Yeah, so we haven't put easy lock tuners on. Say a shame, because they're a real bonus to have on any guitar. What I'm going to do is just put this bridge back on, like temporary like. Just basically put it under there, hook it over that end, drop these things on it and keep them under tension, and just hook them up enough. Drop it down and then just bring them back up to tension a bit. Ooh, keep going, don't fail me now. Ooh. The tension, that feels horrible. Still. Right. I've got to get this the right way, because I can never remember which way around this goes when we change sides with the G. All I know is it's got to come around the front of the guitar, so whatever makes it come around the front. And that's it. Chop. Nearly there with the stringing. Yeah, so well, obviously, as I said, we'll be doing a new tuner in place of that one, because that's now US, as they say in our engineering terms. Unserviceable, I think, is the expression. Or probably more correctly, I think it would be accurate to say it's foobar. I'm using a kind of American military term. It's had it. Okay, last string on here. So remember, the first thing we've got to do is to get the neck set correctly. So we'll tune this up roughly to pitch. Doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be exact. Roughly to pitch, and then we'll make sure we get the neck set right. Okay, so all strings on for the time being. Now the action, we don't want this action to be too steep. We want this one off the bridge post, so we can raise that up a little bit. I don't want to do too far. We'll kind of do the same each side. So it's got enough of a slope on the back there to pull the strings down, but it's not so great that it's pulling too steep an action. Now we've clearly got to raise up this bridge somewhere because it's not got enough action. Again, we're not worrying about the precision of this at the moment. We're worrying about getting it broadly playable, so that we can get into the details of the neck, the nut settings, and the playing action. But to begin with, we're just going to slack everything off. So I can just raise up this action here by turning this the bridge screw. It's meant to be you're meant to be able to turn it with the thumb thing here, but in practice just need to slack this off. Make it easy on myself. So up you come, wasp. Do the same with these, slack this off, bring these up, and I'm just going to roughly gauge it to an action that I think will work for now. I'll aim for making it kind of the same on either end of the scale, and then I'll go back to tightening things up. Okay, that's interesting. So, it's the second time this has happened to me recently, and I'm curious as to why this is. So what's happened is the strings, when strung up, oh, that's why. This is hopeless. Hello, sweetie. Having a few problems with this. Yeah, just one of them I just spotted here, but I couldn't see it before, and that's the trying to get pictures. The string has gone under the fret, which is really annoying. So it's strings got caught under there, and it's about to fool me into breaking. See that? Yeah. Twang. Okay, so this thing here is broken completely. I just managed to get it working long enough to tune this up now, right. But it's going to have to be replaced. But I wanted to just get this set up so I can do the action and everything. Beautiful.
Yes, dinner's nearly ready.
Okay.
Nearly ready for dinner?
How come we have dinner, or can we have it outside?
Yeah, it's lovely now, isn't it?
Now the action is way too high right now. Horribly high. But that's okay. So what I want to do now is take a look and see what's happening with the neck. So the first thing is, let's look down the neck. Right now the neck is straight, so we need to put some relief into the neck. And to do that, I'm going to use a clockwise turn on the truss rod to get that neck with some relief in it. Difficult to do this, even when difficult at the best of times, even more difficult when you've got strings on there. But you need to do it under load, because it's the only way you're going to know what the actual relief is. If you do it with the neck off but no string load, then you're going to have to guess it, which is very tricky. So I'm doing clockwise turn to put some relief into it, and as yet it's a tiny bit now, but not enough. So a bit more. Again, I'm going to let it recover. I can also see straight away then, looking down the neck, that the action's way too high, which is fine because I can pull some of that out by dialing it in with this thing here, which does it in fairly big chunks. So we'll get back to where we should be pretty quickly. Again, very straight there, nothing, no effect. Clockwise, relief, clockwise, relief, clockwise, relief. Okay, come on, let's have some relief, please. Some guitars take a long time for that to take effect. In this case, it doesn't seem to be doing anything much at the moment, which is quite worrying. Meanwhile, while I'm waiting for that to hopefully have some effect, I'm also going to take this, just by looking down at it, I'm going to take the action here down to a more reasonable level. And it's just by eye for the time being. It's going to change the tuning. Nice, still beautifully out of tune. I'll give it a few tugs. As I say, slightly worried about this truss rod not moving anywhere. I'm going to leave, am I going to leave this truss rod? What am I going to do with it? Right now that ain't doing nothing. That's because I'm going the wrong way, probably. Yeah, I think I'm going the wrong way. Okay, let's stop being silly and go the other way. Can get this thing in correctly. Down in there. Okay, so I'm going to go and do this the proper way. I read my instructions upside down there, beautifully simple. And I'm going to dial in some relief into this neck, I hope. But it's hard to tell because it's always very... Oh yeah, we got a bit. We'll leave that there. Go and get something to eat, and then hopefully we'll have a bit. Not sure. So counterclockwise, that way is that way. Where's my other? There we go, square one. It might be a bit easier to get in there. Okay, still no real sign of any movement. To be honest, the truss rod isn't feeling stiff. It's one of those that it's either doing something or it's not. I'll keep trying. Okay, so I think it's time to stop, get something to eat, but we're very nearly there. We'll let this recover and let the neck take up the strain, hopefully, and then we'll be into the last bits, which involve the nut and the final action, and then just plugging it in and having a play and see how it sounds, making sure the pickups are roughly the right height, which at the moment they're okay. More. Too high. Take it back in. How strange. Right, these things, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Still no relief. Counterclockwise, right? Counterclockwise. You sort of want the truss rod to bite on something. Yeah. Feels like it can't be doing anything unless it's stiffening up. I can see it's slowly winding itself out, so it must be doing something. My worry is that the kind of end of it drops off before it actually does anything. Very odd. Right, food time. Let it recover. And please, would you give me some neck relief, please? Don't make me have to go all the way to the end and make this device fall off out of its socket. That would be mighty crap. We're nearly there. Seems like it's coming out without doing anything. I really hate when it does that. Right, leave it there, stop, come back after tea. Okay, we'd like to be heading towards the end game. This is supposed to be on airplane mode. Morris, I don't get it. How my phone is doing things that's supposed to be on airplane mode. Right, so here we are. Wishing we were heading towards the final bit with this guitar, however it is proving to be difficult. The reason why and this is something I've encountered a couple of times, and I really am not clear as to what I'm going to do with this, is that I come to try to set some relief in the neck, and when I get there, nothing happens. All that happens, in fact, is that the the truss rod unwinds itself, and the block at the end, which is supposed to grip the bar, unwinds itself and comes undone and drops off. So I'm going to have to go and do some research as to why that's happening, and what I need to do if I'm going to actually get it to set some relief into the neck of this guitar, because currently there's not enough. And what it means is, with a nice low action chosen, it means a couple of the notes, particularly on this D string, are choking, and that's mainly because the neck is almost straight when it shouldn't be, which is really annoying. Anyway, I'm going to move on to take care of some other things here while we can. So one of them is it's time to set the nut slots correctly on this guitar, and I have a very simple way of doing this. To do it, I'll need some nut slot files, and I've got a few different sizes here, actually ranging from they go matching the size of the strings. Theoretically, they're not precisely done because these aren't for guitar purposes. They are actually from a welding rod set. Anyway, but they do happen to match fairly accurately. So I can start with the largest one in my collection, and I can use that to cut the slot down on any of these that I need to. And as I said before on this video, just about every guitar you'll ever see has a problem with that. The slots aren't deep enough. The result is the action here is too high, and at best it's difficult to play, and at worst it creates intonation problems. So what I tend to do is I tend to take my cue from what is the action when I fret the guitar, and look at what the action is on the new first fret. So if that's the first fret really, then I capo it, and the new first fret becomes the second, right? And the reason I use this to gauge the action is that it's the action off the frets which is the accurate gauge. The nut's always wrong. So if we start with just fretting the first string, or the E string, and then just measure the height of the string over the next fret, what you'll get is, in this case, let's say it's approximately 0.2 of a millimetre. It's a very small gap. Obviously it gets looser as you go further down. So I've measured this, but I've already done the first fret. So what I know now is I want to recreate the same gap on the next fret and the next string across, and so on and so on. And in this case, I'm not going to use this feeler gauge again. I'm going to do this by eye, because I can pretty much see the size of the gap, and I can compare the distance down to the fret by eye. So I'm going to do it manually by eye, and I know it's too high to begin with. So the first thing I do is slack off the string, move it out of its slot, and I'm going to find the right sized file for this job. So it's tricky. It's this one here, second file. Okay, and I'm just going to support that into the guitar a little bit. Okay, so I'll put my file in the slot, and I'm just going to cut away at the slot a little bit and blow the dust away. And then what I'll do is I'll put the string back in and bring it up roughly to the right tension, and then I'm just looking for the reflection of the string over the fret, and I can see to be anywhere near the first to the E string gap without even using a feeler gauge, I can see I've got quite a bit to go down still. And the principle with this is a bit like fret leveling, is you go down a little bit at a time, because you can always take a bit more off, but you obviously can't put any on if you've gone too far. Again, you can clean up the rest of the nut afterwards. So only roughly tuning it, and again I can see quite a long way to go, and actually probably half a millimetre or something like that still to go. So I know I haven't overdone it. If you do overdo it, there is a rescue option. You can recover it with, surprisingly, the use of some super glue and some baking powder. And I've had to use that technique a couple of times now, and I have to say it does work, and it's sufficient to get you out of trouble. Still more. Yeah, so you can use it as a get out of jail option. Not ideal, I mean you prefer not to, so you want to be careful that you don't overcut the slot. But if you do, there is that way out. Alternatively, it's always a good idea to have a couple of spare nuts for different kinds of guitars. If you do this regularly enough, that's probably the best option. Okay. So whatever the action is doing down that end at the moment, we still need to get this bit right. So this is a vital part of our operation to make sure we get the correct overall playing action, and then we'll go back down to the other end and work on the playing action again until we get something, that combination that this guitar can live with the slight problem it's got with the truss rod not giving me the relief I really want. No matron jokes there. So we're almost there on this one, tiny bit more. You can see this isn't scientific, but you'd be surprised how good your eyes are at spotting the gap and knowing when you're at it. Yeah, a bit more still to go. Being very cautious. Yeah, very close. I'll leave it there for now. So we then move on to the next one, which I can now see is quite a bit higher, and it's the D string. So we'll change to our next smallest file. There are a number of ways you can do this. You can either buy expensive proper files from the luthier supplies, which are kind of expensive, which is why I haven't, or you can use these kinds of makeshift versions, or, as I've discovered recently, you can use a triangular diamond file if you want to, and that actually gives really good results, and I may well become a convert to that way of doing it. Some people might think that it doesn't give a very clean looking slot, but the point about the slot is what you care about is it's at the right depth. It's not really whether it's V-shaped or whether it just goes straight down. That's not really the important bit. The important bit is how it grips the string and the thickness or the depth it's at. So the beauty of using the triangular file is that you can actually get down to the right level very, very quickly. And I'm actually beginning to think that having a string sitting in a V shape is actually better than having the string sitting at the bottom of a slot where you've got, in fact, all of the string can be in contact with all of the curve, which makes it much more likely to stick. But if it's a string in a V, then that string only touches one point there and one point on the other side. So theoretically it's actually a better solution. The only problem is, to purists, it makes the hole or the gap at the top look bigger. But I've tried both, and actually it works very, very well. And it's the bonus is that it's a hell of a lot quicker than doing this, and a hell of a lot less fiddly. This really does take some time. And also with these little files, when you get down to the thinner versions for the top 3 strings, they really are far too bendy to do anything sensible with, and they are actually quite difficult. The beauty of using a diamond file is that it's solid all the way and it doesn't bend. You can just blast straight through and get it done. I'm not doing it on this one just because I've started this other way, but another guitar I certainly have done it on, and will do it again with the diamond file, or the triangular file I should really say, that's more accurate. And the other thing with this one, doing it this way, you end up with a lot of material at the top that you don't need. It's not doing it any harm, but you could equally file a whole load of that off as well without causing any problems at all. Take a tiny bit more off here. So you can see this is slow work. If you had $150 worth of files, you could obviously do this quite a bit quicker, but we don't. Tiny bit high still. It's amazing how much you can keep going at it and it takes so long. As I say, with a diamond triangular diamond file, that would be 10 seconds. I think I'll stop at that. Nice. Good wasp. Woo. Okay, we're now moving to the G, and again this is where it starts to get difficult, shall we say. And it's the last of the usable ones on here. After this it starts to get really, really bendy. It's like working with just a floppy bit of wire, and it does become difficult. Be careful with this one because this cuts quite quickly, funny enough. Wow, still loads of height on there. It's amazing once you start taking the other ones down, or once you've taken the first few down, you really can see just how high these other ones are. I mean, way high. Conscious that guitar's moving towards the edge of the table while I'm doing this. Still high. Yeah, this is where it is starting to get difficult to do because of the flexiness of the file, as it's called. sure how much of a file it really is at the moment, but you could probably wear a bit more out with just using a bare string, to be honest. Get there, but slow. Those to go. I have got some other ones here which are pretty much the same actually. Longer, but not necessarily any better. Equally susceptible to bending. It's at this stage I really could use going back to the diamond file. That would be done in seconds. Slowly getting there. Patience, you see. As I've said in many a version of this, doing this video, if you imagine how much time it takes to get this right, and then imagine somebody in the factory doing it, and the amount of time and effort that would take. You wouldn't really be able to do it with a machine. You could have some files, it would do it a bit quicker. Okay, done. Move on. We're getting there, but very slowly. So now we move to the second thinnest of the lot, which is going to be, again, quite a handful to work with. The last one, the smallest one on this list, is already bent beyond recognition. You kind of can't pay attention with this one because you get so used to it taking ages with the wider strings that you can actually find yourself cutting these down way too quickly, because sometimes the thinner ones do cut quicker for some reason. I don't know why. They can do anyway. Whoop, nearly broke that. Yep, more to do. What was that one? Right. Another weekend. Another weekend sorting guitars. That's nearly there. Tiny little bit more. Almost be done. Done. That's nice. I'll stop there, and then next, the final one. And we get the last one out of here, which is almost impossible to use, this fiddly little thing. Although today, quite amazingly, it seems to be wanting to cut fairly quickly. But we shall see. Quite low to go. So this will give you a really, really smooth, low action at the, ouch, well, that's part of that broken off. It'll give you a really smooth, low action at the nut. And then once we've got that, we can go back and adjust the action at the bridge to suit. And once we're there, we'll be into intonation territory. It's taken quite a long time so far today with this because of a number of problems, not least the tuner not working. Now I've got this one is really not behaving, it doesn't want to cut down without bending, so it could be here quite some time. I might have to resort to the other one, see if I can get any better results out of the second set, which again is as thin as the others, only hasn't yet bent out of shape, but no doubt it will do if we're not careful. Really is, at that point I really do want to start using the diamond files. A little bit more to go. Very hard to use this now. It's really bending. Barely even hold it actually, so I'm failing to hold it at this end and that end together. As I say, that's practically unusable. So this is one more reason why I might go for my diamond file approach. It's still too high. Damn. They keep falling off, these things as well. Could be right. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. It's not perfect, but I'm a bit fed up with trying to work with these little wires at the moment. It's good enough. So, it gives us a whole different perspective at this end. Now we're going to go back. Oh, these cleaning are there. I'm going to go back to this end and we're going to check the action here. So, what have we got? Have we got any more relief in the neck? Hardly any. Not good. Can we get any more? Don't think so. If I keep on turning this, it's going to keep turning and come out like it did last time. So we'll do some reading up on this, try and find out what the hell's wrong with it. So, very, very low action. If if we just measure it from there. Now I've got to try and find the correct. There we are. Correct thingy. Oh, it's a different. I'm not doing a Stratocaster. Right. Okay, so let's have a look. What have we got? We've got about a 1.5 millimeter, which on a Strat would be a bit too high for my liking. But I'm going to go a bit higher on the treble end. This is what's happening because we've got no bend in the neck. It's not letting us really get to those notes there, which is really annoying. Well, I've taken the action up a fraction just to overcome that, which is something I don't always want to be able to have to do. But it solves the problem. Again, if we have more relief in the neck, that problem would go away. But the neck is too straight, which seems like a strange problem to have, but it's a real one. Okay, so. Okay, I'm going to leave that action as it is for now. We'll try it out. Try it out a bit later. But what I'm going to do for now is do the intonation. For this, we're going to need the battery amp, the Roland Cube, trusted cube. We're going to need to plug it in, hoping that it still works after what it's been through. We want it on a clean sound without flanges and stuff. And then we're going to need the tuner. And we don't need Wi-Fi for this, we just need a tuner app. Go away. Right. Okay, here we go. So for our job here, we're going to need a small flat blade screwdriver head. Our neighbours sound like a bunch of witches or something. Mad. Okay, so let's get these tuned. So the trick here is setting the intonation is actually quite easy. All you have to do is set the length of your string to the right length for this guitar, for this neck. And how do we know it's the right length? Well, there's a very simple trick that we can do. And we use a tuner to let us know. So the first thing we do is we tune it to pinged harmonic on the 12th fret. Perfect E. if this string length is now the correct length for this neck, where the frets are placed on this neck, then fretting that note will produce the same note. And that's spot on. Nothing to do there. If it was higher or lower, we would adjust the length of the string by moving this little bridge saddle backwards and forwards. We don't have to do it here. Again, on target. That's flat. That means we need to push that bridge backwards. It's kind of difficult to do. I hate it when they put the screws this side of it. Difficult to do with this setup. We need to go wind the bridge saddle backwards, and very hard to do without making a hell of a noise. And we're on the D, won't we? Until I do it, I won't know which way is backwards. It's very fiddly, and it's under pressure, which I hate. I can't be doing with taking the pressure off. Okay, so I've worked it out. Going anti-clockwise pushes it backwards. That will have detuned the string. Should have done. Going the wrong way, of course, that's why. If it's flat, that means the string's too long and we've got to bring it forward. So, God, it sounds awful. So bear with me while I crank this forward. Get in there. It's horrible. But actually we are at the front of the possible reach of this without switching these things round, which we may have to do. Typical Les Paul problem. Oh, so annoying. We can either leave it, or we go and take this whole bridge off, take out this one piece, which means we have to take it out, take all the strings down. This guitar is turning out to be an absolute pain in the arse. Right, so we take everything down, loose. And we're going to need to prop up the strings so we don't want them popping out while we're doing this. So I'm going to just wind them back. Give myself room to put this block under here. I'm going to do this as quick as I can because I'm gradually losing the will to live with this guitar, as you can tell. But to do this job, I'm now going to have to take the bridge off completely. And then I'm going to, once I've got the bridge off, then I get to oh, come on, undo. Once the bridge is off, then I can take this little saddle out and turn it round. And I've had to do this on other guitars, but it's a fiddly little thing. But what it does is it gives you a little bit more room to play. So I guess I'll need more slack off. Off you come. 1 and 2. Right, so there's it off. Just going to use my glasses. Leave everything else the same. But it's this little one that needs to come off and get wound round. And of course, to do it, we're going to need to also pull off the little retaining pin, which again is slightly fiddly and slightly annoying. Ding, there goes the pin. Just hold that off for now. It just come out quite easily. So we're going to go for this here. D. I'm just going to slack it off for a minute so I can stand some chance of popping it out of here, which doesn't seem to want to do. Which is slightly annoying since that's exactly what we've got to do with it. Come along. It's very difficult to do this without, don't want to damage the thing, but if we can't get it out, we can't turn it round. Right, there it is. Bit of force required. Never like to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take, you can see this, I'm going to take this little thing off, turn it round and put it back on, and that gives me a couple more millimeters of adjustment space. I'm going to assume the others don't require it, and that could be a big mistake, but I don't really have much choice at the moment because I think it was close enough. This is difficult now because I've got to try and get this piece back on under the same sort of pressure that it came off. So the end goes roughly in the hole, and I have to coax it home, as they say. Right, that's fine. And then over the top of that we get the little metal retaining clip. Put that in one end, line it up the other end. It's really fiddly. Today it's making me question my commitment to doing re-loving old guitars, I have to say. No, I do believe in it. I do believe in it. I really do. I really do. Come on, over the top. Right. Clip back on. Single one repositioned. Back underneath here. Lift it all up. There you go. Take out the plastic, the rubber block, and tune these babies back up. It's difficult to do on the other side with one hand. We'll get there. While I'm there, let's put a cloth under here and just get this bit of dust from our nut job, shall we say, out of the way. Right, gone. Ready. Everything in place, and we keep going. everything drop. Now, let's just tighten this up. Be within a moment. Right, back again. Okay, we're on the D, and we need, oh no, put it back to front. I can't believe it. Today is not the day. God help me. Just to go to show, everyone can have this kind of day, including especially me. Right, take this all the way off again. What is now doing my head in completely, as you can imagine. Jesus wept. I've put the bridge on back to front basically, so now I'm going to pay for it by having to do the whole thing again, place it the other way around. There's things that don't really occur to you as you're doing them, especially when it's been a long day and you've done plenty of this and fought with this guitar for a bit too long already today, in my reckoning. So we're getting to a point now where, with a bit of luck, we'll be in a position to take off this bridge again, which we can do. Come on, sucker. Back under. On again, and this time we've adjusted the action. You can see there's too much arsing about going on here. Back to the strings. We'll do the top notes first. Right, this is where I stop the stop the camera tape because I am fucking this up royally as we speak. I'm tired, fed up, and I've been doing this guitar for too long today, and what's happening is I'm losing track of what I'm doing. Okay, so it's back under here. What I've done is I've turned the wrong one around because I'm knackered, and I need to turn this one around and replace the other one, which is really annoying. That means I've screwed up the intonation of the one that I've already done. Take my little bar off. Take off the middle two ones now. That one off. And the one next to it. Come on. You can do it. Come on, please. Right, I'll drag this back. I need to drag that one back a bit before I can do it. So it's this one that has to be turned around. That one needs turning around. Right, let's get this right before it does my head in completely. We need the D to be turned around. The D this way. Oh, come on. Please do it right. Thank you. Halfway in, put the point into the gap, point into the little hole, and then we're going to push it in with a bit of force again. Come on. Right, that's in. Back to front. Made it look a bit ugly, I'm afraid, but we've got a bit more and a tiny bit more intonation space. This one goes back in the way it was. Take it out, reverse it. Like fingers like bananas. Okay. Morris going away. The way this works is very strange because it doesn't actually, no matter how you do it, the thing doesn't line up together. the screw back down inside its little gap. Not got the right tool here either, but hey. Right, push that in. Back again. Put on the little retaining clip. Oh. Morris the kitten is making special noises that he reserves for when he's about to try and catch a bird. Okay, we've got those in place. We've got one turned right. Finally, back where we should have been some time ago, long time ago. All the actions all over the place. But hey, we'll live with it for the time being. We'll get it back where it was. Long-winded, isn't it? So once we've done this, we should be on the final leg of the intonation bit. Now, having taken that part of the bridge out, the pin, and turned it round, we may find that even having done that, we don't have enough room to intonate this guitar properly, which sort of means the conclusion we draw from that is that the bridge is slightly in the wrong place. And if that's the case, then there's not a lot we can do about that. We're just doing the best we can. Right. I think the this end's gone down slightly. Bring that up a tad. Right, let's just finish this intonation bit and we'll kill this blessed video. Right, so the D intonation, we hadn't got enough. Probably still don't. We got enough, just. flat, too short, too long. Therefore, shorten it. Come this way. We're going to find out the horrible noises. Come on. More, bring it this way, just so ridiculously positioned. Right, now we are up against the stops. Can I call it quits? Good. There's those of you who might have recognised at that point, and there's no way I was going to take all of that off again just to turn one of those around on the A. Okay, so we are pretty much there. You can see it's pretty much gone dark outside. This tuner looks horrible, but it's still working. That's interesting. It really is interesting. Different. Let me just look close at this. I think there's something I need to do slightly differently here. One, two, three. Yeah. Something about these different. Each of these saddles are slightly different, and they seat the strings slightly differently too. And actually, that one's not in place. That's why. I'll tap that down just gently. It's a very annoying thing. It's not put down in the place it should be. So I'm going to just put a little tap here. There you go. Didn't need much. That'll make it out of tune. At least it's sorted the action out. Again, we'll give it some more pull, because these strings have been off and on so many times already. Who knows where they are. That third one's still too high. Give it a wee tap just in case. I think what's happened there is in the past somebody's actually mixed up one of the bridge pieces from the bass and put it in the middle, but hey, we'll live with it. Right, we are done. Well, here we have it. The vintage V100 Les Paul copy. Nice looking guitar, bit of a bugger to get sorted out, but I think we're just about there, thanks to spinning one of these around to get the last bit of intonation. I suspect the strings are going to go out of tune all over the place. Thought for a minute my electrics were knackered, but they're playing. Beautiful. this another day when I've polished it up and let the strings bed in a bit. We might just readjust the tuning, the action again at a later date. It'll do for now, I think. So at this point I'm going to bid you good night, because as you can see it's got dark and I've had as much as I can take of the vintage V100.